Well, good morning. Today is happy May the 6th, 2021. It's the day after Mayo de Cinco, which of course is a grand holiday for much of the planet. I'm very grateful being here today with Mike Lassner, who's representing our partner, Allied Building. My name, of course, for those of you who don't know, is Chris Bolton. I am the CEO of TheraCAST International, as well as our subsidiaries that include Sprout AI, OS2, and Edge Biotrace. Our purpose of our podcast today, and I'm happy to announce our partner. We're working directly with Allied. Allied is building structures globally, both to a food grade and pharmaceutical grade standard. The building behind me, which much of you know, is our Center of Excellence, our first Center of Excellence on the planet, which sits here in the high-tech park of Panama Pacifico, was planned, designed, and built by Allied. They also have built many of the other, what we'll call high-tech structures, or LEED compliant structures here in Panama Pacifico. Spoiler alert, Mike will share more information on that. But the purpose of today's talk is to announce our first contract. And our first contract is significant. It is a full-scale facility that's over 40,000 square feet. The design and the plan of that 3D model will be provided at the end of this talk today, so you can see it. It is our V2, our version 2 of our Center of Excellence, our first contract being delivered into Southern Africa later this year. Why Allied? Well, best in class. As we've discussed in our other previous podcasts, we work with vendors who we feel are repeatable, economic, practical, scalable, safe, and secure. Our REPS 3S is what has gotten us this far in our journey. And from that, as I say, I'm very happy to announce Michael Lassner. Michael, tell us a little bit about Allied and where are you operating in the world? Share, please.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Well, great to be here. And of course, what a wonderful view. This picture, our very first building in Panama, gosh, 2009, right at the beginning of, or maybe a year after the beginning of the economic expansion down there, which we were so privileged to participate in. And certainly that entire business park there, most of it. So Allied, we're operating right there in Panama. And it's interesting because when we started on that project, we realized in order to create the value we needed for clients, we needed to be local. And so it was, after, I don't know, 50, 100 flights down to Panama, you're saying this isn't practical anymore and we need to be there tomorrow and our flight's out tomorrow. So we had opened an office in Costa del Este in Panama, and that's been a great value for us and for our clients to have local presence there. More recently, a couple of years ago, we opened up an operation in Spain, which was really critical to our supply chain, which is global. And you never know why you do things or you need things the most until you see how time changes and how global economies change. And certainly we've been going through that the past 14 months, right? And, supply chain and relationships matter. So you really find Allied in a lot of locations, whether it's an office or whether it's an individual, in key markets. So we can be close to the supply chain network and close to our clients. And of course, the rest of us just keep traveling here, which isn't so bad for all the places that we build.
Well, please share. How many locations are you sitting in now?
Oh, 65 countries we've built in.
Countries.
Yeah, and it's been everything from full developments and over 50 structures in the country you're sitting in Panama to projects here and there in places like Micronesia and of course Africa, which we were comfortable and familiar with, be comfortable and confident to work with you there. So it's been a big spread. Of course, we have a large presence and business in the US where we started. That has evolved to a significant presence in Latin America and the Caribbean. We are, of course, Africa, it kind of goes in economic cycles like everything else, perhaps more rapid there. So we've had a series of projects over the years throughout Africa, and it'll slow down, it'll pick up again. But those are primarily our regions. If it's the North America, Latin America, Caribbean, and then Africa. Europe's new in terms of a potential supply to the market, but certainly having presence there, it's critical because the product selection that we need for certain clients' products, there's specialization around the globe. And so for us, it's not just going and buying it, right? When we do that, we're there. We're there in person to negotiate. We're there in person to inspect, quality control. Just on with our logistics team before our chat today, and just going through every single detail about where product is moving around the world for Allied right now, and our clients, of course.
Well, absolutely. And again, as part of our selection, and we have been hunting for a partner like Allied for 9 years now, 9 years. What impressed us was your coverage. Whether we're looking to replicate our current version in Australia or New Zealand, other countries within Africa, of course, Oceania particularly, and of course LATAM, are not easily done without a secure partner. Being able to take the same model but put it in a very cold climate. You're very, very active in North America, of course. Where are you sitting today, in fact?
Actually, I'm down in our headquarters in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Beautiful. But being able to build an all-weather structure in northern Alberta, being able to put one on Vancouver Island or somewhere between Golden, British Columbia, and Calgary, Alberta, is important to us. And know that we can keep the same design, but build it to the climate is exceptional. Now let's talk about the structure itself. Many of our listeners are keen to learn more about how do we build a structure that meets compliance. We are effectively in between food grade and pharma. We're straddling both, and our company, of course, is committed to an EU GMP compliance standard to show auditors that what we're producing behind the wall, of course, is going to meet requirements. So tell us a little bit about the experience that you've had. Perhaps share a little bit about who you're working with, and what you've been up to with regards to building food grade, farm grade facilities. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So, in a broader sense, we tend to work in categories. We supply building for a variety of industries, right? But, within categories where we feel there lacks either expertise or collective expertise going into a project, we wanted to spend time there. More broadly at Allied, we call them environmental solutions, and it's exactly how you described it. How do I put a building in northern Alberta and that, another structure down in El Salvador, right? And have this alignment.
Right.
And so what we've done is we've brought in and hired and expanded our team with expertise over the years for individuals who understand that, whether it's the actual specific requirements of that industry and some of that expertise, which sometimes is on staff or a consultant that we'll bring in that specializes in that, and then staff members behind it. So more broadly today, we've got one staff member who's just spent much of his career developing environmental solutions, following international codes, looking at then, food grade requirements that may associate with it and et cetera. I mean, I know we just had an extraordinary project down in Chile in Punta Arenas where everything you did for everybody just kind of came together in one project. And so it was for a fishery, and it was just, it really was, right? We have insulated panel experts on the team. We have paint experts on the team. So you're going through this. And of course, for me, it's like, it's a lot of pressure in these projects, but I can't tell you how enjoyable it is for me to see these team members come together, which, we're 18 years. I still consider us young. I think it's what I call our first chapter at Allied.
Yeah.
But we've got long tenures here. And so just watching those team members come together and come up with these solutions is an extraordinary, enjoyable process. But to your point, you need to rely on us. So, Allied makes certain that if we're going to engage and take on any project in any industry with any specialization or requirements, that we have the confidence to say to you, we've got the internal expertise, we've got the consultants' expertise, we can come up with the solutions for your project. And that's really how we do it. And so then, once we understand that and we make sure we're certain on it, then it's understanding what happens inside the structure. And, we always found, Allied's got this niche, I think, in our industry where we're not a building supplier, we're a business partner. Mm-hmm. We're a solution partner. So we have to understand what you're doing in the building. We have to understand what's the outcome. What are you trying to accomplish? Whether it's current, whether it's phased for future expansion. But ultimately, we start with the business solution, and then we start to build a structure around that. So that's really, what you'll find, what you've probably found now, and what you'll find in future, where, there's a large food company that I can't name, but I went to several South American countries with their leadership 5 years before a building ever set foot in the dirt over there, before a shovel went to the ground, because they said this could be the future of our company. Mm-hmm. And this could be our next phase of expansion. And it was really interesting. I hadn't thought of putting myself in that situation yet, or how far ahead I need to spend time with our clients. And until I got the phone call from them and said, hey, I'm going to, so-and-so country, you want to join me? Yes. So then what did I learn? I just learned so much, and it made us realize that we want folks to think about us years in advance of their development. And our responsibility, obligation back, and understanding is that you may not go forward with something we're working on, and perhaps if we work together on that, together we realize it may not make sense. You obviously know your business a lot better than we do, but our responsibility is to give you the feedback. From our view, does the construction work? Would budgets work? Are there local trades that can provide the resources that are needed to accomplish the project? And so there's been many that we've worked on and said, I guess, we felt so strongly about the project, we invested resources, but let's move on to the next one because it doesn't make sense for you. So kind of a snapshot in how we think about things for our clients.
Well, and for that purpose, we'll also provide a link to the Allied website. We do have a list of your clients there. Many of them are Fortune 100, Fortune 2s. Bayer Life Sciences on your website, got Nestle. So it goes to show the depth of experience, not just practical knowledge that you've done it, and these sites are operating in their showcase. So well done on that front. Let's turn to the process itself. One of the things that attracted us, and we've gone through the ringer over the years, starting with some of our very first projects back in 2014, trying to engineer a structure from scratch and going through architectural design and then engineering, both mechanical, electrical, and civil, and so forth, is a long, drawn-out process. And when you're starting with parties that may not be fully knowledgeable, not so much as to the local code or requirements, but they don't understand why the building is being used. In this case, for vertical indoor cultivation, it becomes horrendously expensive, and it takes forever. By the time we get the structure, having to source the local parts and supplies and get them on location, and then hire a general contractor to pull it all together, that adds and telescopes the projects immensely. And in many of our early projects simply became too uneconomic to move forward. And if I look back on working on, for example, in Canada alone, since 2013, we've worked over 200 projects. But out of that, only half a dozen made it through fruition because of the telescoping costs and cycle time delay, not including regulatory delays from the good government agency in Canada. But let's talk about your approach. And again, for our listeners today to understand why you're best in class, what really brought us to the table with Allied is you're building a modular structure. You're able to replicate it for us so it's identical, but of course, custom to the local requirements, of course, like climate, for example, on a per project basis. But the layout and the design are repeatable. And for an auditor to understand that what they're stepping in is identical to another facility of ours that they've reviewed and approved is invaluable to us. But being able to build these structures and shorten effectively the design of them, let's talk about that in a minute. And as I say, we'll have a little 3D video at the end so people can see exactly what we're talking about. But it is a warehouse. It does have an admin and functioning process area to both extract, pack, label, dispose, and do on-site storage and online labs. But can you share with us, how did you guys figure out how to do a modular building in a way where we can ship these anywhere in the world?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we learned over time is we couldn't be effective unless we made further investments in technology and expertise. And one of those was the BIM modeling that we do. And what that allows your team and your other subcontractors, as you said, it doesn't fall under us. But we realized if we can get the building figured out and get the model figured out and the sizes of materials and everything to you as quick as possible, that you're then able to validate it with your other trades and say, can we replicate our systems inside this structure? And most of the time it's a yes, but there may be an area of conflict. Well, the beauty of the BIM modeling is that we're able to modify where that conflict exists, immediately offer alternatives and make changes. And it's, it's interesting because we look at our industry, prefabricated buildings, of course we do prefabricated and also conventional steel. But in either case, people look at it as replicated pieces of the same, or it's a building kit. I mean, you have a very large building kit, and it's certainly here.
Right.
But it actually, every single one of them is custom, right? Because of the building codes. So even if we replicate exactly the same of what's happening inside, if you've got significantly different codes, you think about, I've got seismic in California or in Peru, and I come up to Canada, or excuse me, Canada, let's say I come up to Panama, and I'm close to the region, but very different, right? It does have seismic today, the code changed in 14, but very different.
Right.
So this modeling allows us to say, you know what, TheraCAST is going to replicate the footprint. We understand clearances, we understand everything they're trying to do inside, and we're going to fit that structure, that system within this model. The depths may change to meet the seismic code. We may change bracing in there, but the cool thing is we know what you're doing in the building. So we're going to move it around so it won't interfere. So what we learn on the first building together, and the idea that the model is to replicate it elsewhere, we get to a process we're able to suggest back to you and say, hey, Chris and team, here's the model, here's everything, but because of the wind codes, because of the seismic codes, we made these changes in the structure. Good news, it doesn't affect what you're doing inside the structure. Right. The second analysis, of course, then is how do we make sure it's still economical to build? So we want to make sure that changes that we make are easy to be constructed locally, because that's the other piece, right? I mean, a lot of times we see in the international markets, construction cost and labor may not be as much, but the point of the business is to get you open as quick as possible. And that's a cost that we're very close and pay a lot of attention to. So the idea is fit your business in there, make it easily constructed, and then, kind of flows downhill from there. We'll make sure we've got the right information out to all the trades. They understand how to work within the structure. They understand how to construct the structure, and then just kind of, I'll put a tagline in there for the "We're with you all the way." But it's really making sure that we can work with you throughout the project.
Well, let's talk about the other new reality, and that's dealing in building a complex structure in the middle of a global pandemic and economic disruption.
Yeah.
Now, that's the new normal, at least for many of us going forward. It's created a host of supply chain opportunities. Are being able to secure food supply chain is why we're growing so fast. But I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how did the company Allied adapt to the realities of COVID, and here we are shipping a complex structure to the other side of the world, to a country that may be resource constrained, and yet we have a solution. Can you share on how you adapted?
Sure. And by the way, just a comment back to you. I think if the pandemic and the challenges that occurred, and I don't have to tell you, we know that those who are in most need of your output are even falling back another decade because of the results of the pandemic. And I think it's so critical, the success of TheraCAST and companies like yours in that industry, that really, if people didn't understand the value 2 years ago, they certainly will now. So it's critical. I think it's so interesting because the steel mills shut down in March, right? And they, understandably, right? We all did, right? There was not a car on the highway, and we have one of the busiest ones in the world here in South Florida. Yeah. And so their ramp up started to occur again, maybe by the summertime. But to put it in perspective, we receive calls every day, and we love it, and we're thankful, and we have an amazing marketing team that allows us to do that, as well as a repeat client base. But those calls don't translate into fabrication until a few months or several months down the road, depending on the location. So really, the steel industry didn't have a good sense of the recovery and the constraints, for logistics and materials well into the fall last year. So their ramp up was, and understandably, they want to take a step at a time, right? Because the worst thing of all is they don't want to, go full steam ahead again and then have to shut down again. Extraordinary costs for them, and they also want to be, good partners to their employees, so they want to carefully reopen. Nobody anticipated, of course, the impact of the reopening and how fast it happened. In our industry, we were back manufacturing in August, and it's only gone straight up from there. But our input costs are more. The logistics challenges of the global economy reopening tied together with the change in distribution that occurred because we're all living from home now, right? And so that supply chain constraint was extraordinary, and it's continuing on today. A lot of folks in the U.S. were shocked, and typically we'll manufacture in the U.S. We will manufacture in Mexico, and we also manufacture in Spain. And different markets had different reactions, right? The U.S. was shocked, but everybody started consuming extraordinary amounts from home, so the supply chain logistics got shocked here. Mexico, not so much, so we had more availability down there. But our U.S. fabricators had difficult time keeping up with the demand and getting materials in and getting them fabricated and back out. Plus, COVID in the factories, it occurred in almost every fabricator. Even though many of them, I thought, did an excellent job of really trying to protect their teams and recreate the space. But if you think about it, if you're going from the most efficient production line imaginable, which many of these folks that we work with, they're best in class, they've been doing it for years, and now they're saying, we can't do that anymore. Now we're going to have 5 people on the line instead of 10, or or we're going to space people out, or we're not going to use as many welding stations. It changed everything. So we were fortunate in the fact that Allied has a global supply chain. Right. We had projects that were in one country planned to be fabricated there, and in an evening huddle, we looked at a situation that happened with one of our fabrication partners, and the next day it was being moved to another country. We had some folks that had said, I can get this material, I can't get that material. And we worked with our global supply chain team and said, you know what, we can buy that material over there. It's the exact same code, class, quality, same ASTMs. We're going to buy that material. We've had fabricators ask us to buy them material. It's been amazing, but this is what we all talk about with them over the years. You never know when you need each other most. And really, it was a moment where how can we help everybody in turn, because Allied's focus is we've got to help our clients. Their projects continue on. And so it's really making sure you have that right supply chain and team in place, which we've built for years. So, they're like family to us as much as our employees.
Well, it is critical. And I am so thankful that all of our vendors have actually thrived. They spotted opportunity during this pandemic as opposed to pitch tent and shut down. So we have not lost step in our critical components for the equipment that's going inside. Yes, there's been telescoping with regards to some of the source components, which we had to adjust our ordering patterns for. But thankfully, we still have access to what we need. So I'm really, really appreciative of that. All right. Well, Michael, we're nearing the end of our intro. There will be subsequent calls that we'll have for subsequent TheraCAST to show off our facilities, and we'll highlight new outcomes of what it is that we're doing through audit, for example, to really not just showcase but educate this industry as it evolves at the speed of light, to stabilize international both food and pharmaceutical plant grade sector. So are there any closing thoughts that you have just to kind of end this first series of chats over time? What anything?
I honestly, first of all, thank you. Of course, we're very excited to be a partner of yours. The best in class. You said to us, can only describe what you're doing. We looked at this industry with your involvement in it well updates ours, but looking back a few years ago with many people trying to get involved, but nobody knowing how to bring it all together, whether it was private companies, investors, or governments. So it's very exciting to see what you're doing, and I really look forward to following the process along and following our team and really seeing the outcome for what we can do together. And of course, itching to travel and be there and see it all come together, which hopefully we'll all be able to do soon enough. But no, it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of the program that you have with TheraCAST and be a partner there. And we look forward to growing with you and learning from you. That's what we.
Well, with that, perfect. Thank you, and likewise, E2 and you. That this has been a great journey. Your team is exceptionally professional. The assignment of PMs has been perfect and spot on. In fact, I believe we have our first client introductory call with our PM for our project that is now commenced with deposit. So thank you again for that. Really excited about the days and weeks and months ahead. We will be getting updates with regards to our other project starts in the coming weeks as well. So Michael, hold on. We need to get to warp speed and we need more power from our engine. So thank you for leading that engine. Really appreciate it. With that said, if anyone else has questions, contact information will be at bottom for our podcast, links to the Allied site. Our 3-day model, as we spoke about, is free to distribute. It's open on YouTube, and we look forward to sharing more information as we progress. So have a great Thursday as we head into the weekend of Cinco de Mayo. Hope everyone stays safe, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ciao, ciao.